Welcome in On Deck. Thank you guys for joining. I saw some of you guys active in the chat early on. Really appreciate that. I got a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, I'm not in my usual set, and you're probably wondering why if you haven't watched lately. I am in Northport, Florida at the moment, home of Brave spring training. As you can tell, I spent some time out in the sun today at Cool Today Park. It was a lot of fun. Got to witness a Ronald Acuna home run. That's always a pretty good day. But got some stuff to talk about tonight. Got some headlines to go through, and kind of got some things that I witnessed today. Gonna go through some of that, but also just some things that I kind of want to talk about on the side. So first off, something that's been talked about a lot on my social media today. Ender Inciarte is out for not really a certain certain amount of time. We don't know for sure, but he's out with a thumb injury. It's not certain how he got it. I haven't really heard anything. No determination of how or how long he's going to be out. But we've done a lot of talk about center field and whether or not Christian Pache was going to start opening day at center field, and you got to think that sort of gives you got to think that gives Pache a little bit of an advantage, right? So that's a pretty interesting headline. A headline, I don't think this is a headline, but I'll say it because I think it should be said. Kyle Wright today pitched pretty well. 4 innings scoreless, and he was going against Tyler Glasnow, right? So to me, it's really hard to compare Tyler Glasnow and Kyle Wright because they're two different pitchers. Tyler Glasnow is kind of an ace now for the Rays now that Blake Snell's gone, and Kyle Wright's an up-and-comer. So for him to go scoreless 4 innings against the Rays offense, I thought was fairly impressive for him. And I think he's going to have a heck of a year this year, hopefully. But we'll see as time goes on. Now, before we go any further, I do want to go and say this real quick. I didn't bring it with me. I should have, but don't forget this video. Back to spring training, some more to talk about. I want to go through sort of what I noticed on a fan level. Uh, Look, I don't know if how many of you guys have been to spring training. I am pretty well versed. I've been a few times. And I went when it was in Disney. I was going to go last year, and COVID shut everything down, and now I'm going this year, and I'm finally witnessing Cool Today Park. I'll tell you this, to me, the best thing about spring training is the access that comes with it. When you go to Truist Park, it's a great environment. It's a great show. It's a great, place to watch a baseball game. But there is very limited access for good reason. It's a Major League Baseball game. That is not the same at spring training. Spring training is pretty open. It's very laid back. It's a very non-serious approach. And I mean that with all the respect in the world for spring training, but it's a very fan-friendly environment for those people that are deeper baseball fans than most others. And I really think that, COVID has taken that away because I was talking, I'm the kind of guy that likes to test the limits of access. I like to look like I know where I'm going sometimes to see how far I can get. And I tested some of the boundaries to see how serious the protocols were, and they were pretty serious. So I will tell you this, if you're thinking about making the trek to spring training, heed my advice. Look, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of opportunity to catch a foul ball because it's 20-30% full. Okay, I think we left the ballpark today with like 8 or 9 baseballs. So that is a great thing about it. But on the access side of things, if that's what you're looking for, this is not the year for you. You got to wear a mask. You got to, there is obviously the normal COVID protocols that are probably still going to be in place throughout the regular season, but there is also the limited access. So keep that in mind if you were thinking about going. Look, I still obviously made the trek. I knew what was going to happen. I sort of expected it to some degree at least, but it's still noticed, right? So just heed my advice on that. If you're a normal spring training goer and you're debating on if this year is your year, I will tell you that it will be a bit of a culture shock. So just again, keep that in mind. So I want to talk about something else. Every last year, the first video I ever did that really sort of took off with Braves fans was the crowded outfield video. That was the first one that I got a lot of traction on. And I thought, we don't necessarily have a crowded outfield anymore. Not in the same sense. Last year it was crowded because you had to fit in Nick Markakis, Ronald Acuna, Marcell Ozuna, Drew Waters, Christian Pache, Adam Duvall. You had a lot of guys to fill in. It's a little bit different now, but I think that it's still kind of crowded in a different way. So the names at that time were a little bit different, but make no mistake, the Braves still have a crowded outfield. It's a good problem to have, but it is still a bit of a problem. Last year, the Braves had to find a way to mix all those guys: Ronald Acuna, Nick Markakis, Adam Duvall, Christian Pache, Drew Waters, and Ender Inciarte, who I didn't even mention. But at the time, not knowing what we know now, that seemed a lot harder. Luckily for the Braves last year, the DH came in and made it a bit easier to find everyone a role, but you still had guys like, in the infield, Charlie Culberson had like 7 at bats last year. But, Marcell Ozuna fell into that DH role nicely. That spot's gone now, though. It's not 2020 anymore. It's 2021. And, as of right now, there is no DH for this season. That could change, given how baseball is at the moment. But your everyday outfield is pretty much set, and it's pretty much all determined to be Marcell Ozuna in left, Ronald Acuna in center, or Ronald Acuna in right, and Christian Pache in center. But even though Adam Duvall and Nick Markakis are gone, and now Ender Inciarte is out with an injury, the outfield is still crowded to some degree. Hear me out. So I think we all prefer to see Christian Pache in center field, right? So if your everyday outfield is going to be Christian Pache in center, Marcell in left, and Ronald in right, you're still missing some guys here, because I'm not even talking about the guys on the 40-man or the 26-man. Drew Waters is going to lead this crew that are looking to break in with the Braves, but there's more than that. He's the number 2 prospect within the organization, right behind Christian Pache technically. But the estimated time of arrival for Drew Waters, according to MLB.com, is 2021. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Who knows, in the sense of how far he was pushed back last year, how far he really is away. It's kind of hard to tell because he didn't even get to face minor league talent last year from other teams. So it's hard to tell how he would compete with a major league team if he can't even compete against a minor league team. So just think about that for a second. But I question how much of a role, everybody's talking about Drew Waters coming up. I question how much of a role he's going to be able to have this year and for the near future. And here's why. Ronald Acuna is not going anywhere for the next 8 years. Neither is Marcell Ozuna for the next 4 or 5. And I would say that it wouldn't be crazy to expect Christian Pache to sign a long-term deal, depending on how he does this year. And I don't think anyone's going to push him out of center unless his offensive performance is terrible. And based on what I saw today, he had some hard-hit balls. His approach at the plate is a lot better. And I think he's going to be a mainstay in center soon. So, sure, he can split time, but maybe Drew finds an opportunity. I just don't think there's a very big window there. So, again, he's not the only one. A guy that was out there today, Michael Harris, we're going to talk about him in a second. The Braves are pretty deep in every aspect of the minors. Pitching, infielders, outfielders, catching is really prevalent right now. But don't forget about guys like Trey Harris, who we don't really talk about a whole lot. Another outfielder scheduled to make his MLB debut this season in a normal year. But these estimated times of arrivals aren't ironclad because of the COVID season and everything else. Minor leagues shut down, and it's hard to tell when these guys are actually going to show up. But you're starting to see the development, and the Braves can't openly manipulate service time in the minors to fit your team calendar. You can't do that. The Mariners just got in a lot of trouble for that. So if you can't do that, what do? Right? And Trey Harris, by the way, is no slouch. He's not a huge power guy, but he can flat out hit. Kind of reminds me of like a Terry Pendleton style hitter. In 2019, he hit 323 and slugged 498 in the minors. And unfortunately, through the pandemic, playing baseball through it, we've missed seeing these guys develop on screen and against other talent. But the last two transactions for Trey Harris were not designated him to move up in the minors. They were an invite to spring training. That's how crazy the minor leagues have been lately. So it's easy to tell that Waters and Pache are first in line, right? Pache obviously getting the call now. Waters eventually going to get the call next. But being that they're number one and number two, it's easy to say that they're next in line. And I think we all know that Pache will finally have his rookie season this year, full rookie season. But we may see Waters soon, maybe in a bench role. That still excludes Trey Harris, right? And I know what you're thinking. Tyler, just trade Trey Harris. Just trade all that extra talent and move it elsewhere. And sometimes that's what you got to do, right? You got to reallocate and move. But keep in mind, this is not a one-year issue. For the past few years, this is not a problem the Braves have had necessarily. With Markakis playing on one-year contracts and buying the team time, they haven't had to force anyone up. But we've all had the mindset that because of that these guys could get called up and take Markakis' spot at any time. Now you're seeing that happen a little bit. Well, you're seeing it directly happen with Pache. So with Ozuna playing on a one-year contract last year, I fully expected him to be gone and them to call up Waters if he was ready. But I don't think Waters is quite ready yet. So I still think, that could have been the plan had it worked out. I just don't think it's there. But then the minor leagues were shut down, and it was just a big, question mark. So Ozuna's now on a 4-year contract. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not against it. I'm fully for it, to tell you the truth. But it does bring in a challenge in placing these minor leaguers on the field. So maybe the DH is brought back in the National League next year, and you can afford to put Waters in left for better fielding, obviously, and Ozuna with a bat. But maybe. But it's not a guarantee. So for right now, at least, left field is occupied by Marcell Ozuna. Acuna's on a long-term deal, and another outfield spot, presumably right field, is occupied. That only leaves center field as a possible pending injury, as a possible spot for someone to move up in. And Pache has pretty much been groomed for that role for the past few years. So where did Trey Harris and Drew Waters land? Right now, they're both sort of in limbo. So that isn't an abnormal thing necessarily. It happens a good bit. For the fans that are waiting on them, it is a bit tiring to never see that call up, and I get that. But for right now, there's nowhere for them to go. So why not trade them? Right? Well, like I said, it's just not that easy. Anyone would want Drew Waters. We've already talked about the teams that have inquired about Waters and trade talks, and the Braves have held up on doing that. They could have already done it. And, of course, it depends on the package. It depends on how many prospects we're talking and what prospects we're talking about. But maybe they think he'll be worth getting something later on down the line. But outfielders, a lot of the time, aren't as valuable as pitchers, catchers, even infielders sometimes. They're not to say they're a dime a dozen. Obviously, different outfielders calls for different results. But outfield talent is not hard to come by a lot of the time. But the talent level that Waters has or has been spoken about can't be denied. So why not trade him and get a piece that we need, maybe a bullpen piece? That wouldn't eliminate the problem. It may delay the problem if you were to do that, but there's still another prospect that has recently drawn a lot of attention. We mentioned Trey Harris a minute ago, but there's Michael Harris, and he actually hit a home run in today's game, so credit to him. His estimated time of arrival is 2023. And oddly enough, I kind of map out what I'm going to talk about in different, a couple days early. Oddly enough, I pretty much mapped this whole thing out. And oddly enough, Michael Harris hit a home run today. But we are going to talk about Michael Harris. For right now, the Braves are really impressed with this kid. 4 days ago, David O'Brien reported that his prospect status is growing. 6 days ago, Grant McCauley tweeted that Harris, quote-unquote, has some skills, and I think Brian Snitker and the Braves are enjoying the opportunity to find some reps for Harris this spring training. And as exciting as that is, will those skills remain in the minors for the foreseeable future? In 2023, Marcell Ozuna will still be on contract, granted the tail end of it. Ronald Acuna will still be in the midst of his contract, and Christian Pache will hopefully still be a star and be signed to a long-term deal. But what about when he forces his way in inevitably? You can only sit, in the minors for so long before you start breaking out, like Austin Riley did not too long ago. He broke that glass ceiling and made his way to the big leagues back in 2019, and he may have struggled after a month in, but his numbers in the minors were so good that it would have been a crime to leave him there. So what about when that happens, right? Where do you put him? That's where the question is. For Riley, former MVP Josh Donaldson was sitting at third, occupying that spot, and Marcell Ozuna is doing that now. Ronald Acuna is doing that now. And it's not a bad thing. It's important to realize that this is a very good problem to have. And I know the way I'm talking, it may seem like I wish the Braves didn't have this problem, right? No, I'm glad they do. It's called depth. But they still have to work around this at some point. Questions have to be answered, and that question may be a trade, and we'll see. But I don't believe in not re-signing star players in favor of young talent all the time. Sometimes I do, depending on age, depending on a number of factors, depending on money sometimes. You got to weigh your options. It's called Moneyball. That's what depth is for, options. So where do these guys find their opportunity? Make no mistake, the Braves thought these guys were ready. If the Braves thought these guys were ready right now, they'd have a spot on the roster on opening day. How do I know that? The simple answer is the Braves want to win ball games. That's a pretty simple and given answer. But also take a look around. The Braves bench had, and arguably still has, a lot of flexibility, a lot of competition. So that's where I think these guys are going to find their first opportunities. And one, that's the spot with the most competition, like I just said. And two, it's a spot with the most flexibility and the more chances at an opening. So as crowded as the outfield may be, you can never have too much depth, right? We talk about depth all the time, mainly in bullpen and bench roles. But right now you got it at position player too. So of course when you're talking about depth, there is reasons for it. I consider depth to be an insurance policy, and it's an important thing to have in a 162-game season. But if Plan A doesn't work, there should be plenty of options to go to. We saw that a lot with the bullpen last year. We all know that pitching and catching have always been the fastest way to the show, and it's a little different in the outfield. Even Hank Aaron, back in the day, struggled to break through to the majors, as talented as he was. He only broke through when Bobby Thompson broke his ankle in spring training. He was a depth piece that got called up finally. So needless to say, it'll be interesting to see what the Braves do with all these star players in the minors. So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about spring training, of course, but I wanted to run that by you. I thought it was just a good thing to talk about with all the questions and answers in spring training. That is certainly one. We're going to go through some of you guys' comments in just a few minutes. I saw one that kind of made me laugh. I figured I better address it since I'm on camera right now. I am sunburnt. I don't really consider this a burn. This is more of a tan. It looks a little worse on camera, to tell you the truth. It's really not that bad. I don't feel pain or anything. I may 2 days from now, but I don't feel any pain. I know it looks worse, but I've been in the sun all day. It's just is what it is. It's really not that bad. If it was on my back, it might be worse. But I'm in Florida, guys. I can't. It just is what it is. I'm fair skinned and I'm in Florida. I'll probably sunblock it tomorrow, but yeah. Sorry about that. Again, guys, obviously, if you're just tuning in, if you tuned in amidst that whole little monologue, I'm obviously not on my usual set. I am in Northport, Florida. We are at spring training. I hope some of you guys tuned into some of the live videos today. I'm sure some of you did. Try to give you guys some footage that you can't really see all the time. So, it was a fun day. Ronald Acuna, of course, bat flipping all the way. That was a fun thing to see. Michael Harris hitting 1-2 was a pretty cool thing to see. A young prospect doing what he did. So it was a fun day. Kyle Wright, 4 innings scoreless. Tyler Glasnow, 4 innings scoreless. The offense was kept down by. Look, Glasnow's a stud, so you can't really blame the Braves offense for holding it down. But Acuna hitting that home run was a nice thing to. I don't think. I really think Acuna is more. I think he's more all around fit, and I don't think that's something to be concerned about. But we'll see. I think Acuna's ready to go. I think obviously hitting a home run today was a major stopping point. But stepping stone is what I was looking for. But yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I think the Braves are going to be geared up and ready to go This is going to be a bit of a shorter show. Sorry about that, but we are on vacation, and I promised I wouldn't be in here too long. But yeah, William, I saw you talking about Bryce Ball. He had an appearance today. He missed a ground ball, but it was kind of out of reach. It wasn't really something I would consider to be an error. It was out of reach play. Spring training didn't really tell you whether or not it was an error, but it wasn't to me. He dove out. It hit the edge of his glove. And he couldn't get to it. But he's not out there for his glove. Bryce Ball is full of power, and I think it's going to be a fun thing to see him grow and develop. Let me see. The outfield is looking really good right now. Yeah, because of that depth. Tyler, do you think the Bravos bench is weak? Well, this is the question, right? I don't know that it's weak, the bench. You got guys like Jake Lamb. You got some veterans in there, Jason Kipnis. But I don't think it's weak. I think it's undetermined as to what it's going to be, right? Last year, you knew what you were going to get out of Charlie Culberson. You knew you sort of knew what the results were going to be. I think there's a lot of unknown potential on the bench, right? Johan Camargo is likely going to be on the bench. I think Camargo could break out at any point. He had a very good offseason in the Dominican League, and at any point I think he could break out. But there's a lot of just unknown potential, and I think it'll be a test of time. I think that is something that, if need be, you can address, at the All-Star break possibly or before, and that's something you could trade for if need be. But I don't know if I'd call it weak just yet. I think it's undetermined what it would be. So we'll see. But I think that's a very good question, and that is the question. I think that and the bullpen, because you don't have Shane Green coming back. You don't have you don't have Mark Melanson. So I think there's a couple questions that are going to have to be answered. Who's going to step up? But we'll see. I think that AA will have it just fine. I actually had a tweet today that went semi-viral amidst Braves country. I had a video of AA walking in to the Braves area, like clubhouse, and he was on the phone, and I wonder who he was calling. But yeah, if you want to go see that, go check me out on Twitter at BubblegumJesus. But we are going to wrap it up here in just a minute. I do want to run through this one more. We are going to check out in just a second, but any more questions we got? Let me see. Okay, Lamb or Waters, Pablo or Ball? I'm going. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to lean on the prospects just because I think they have more upside. I don't think Lamb or Pablo are going to break out and just start hitting bombs or something. But right now it kind of just depends who's hot. I think that's the question. Who can be hot this year? Who can be successful this year? Um, did I mute the mic? Can you hear me? Sorry, guys. I'm operating on a different I'm operating on a different system at the moment. So I think you guys can hear me. I hope. Well, anyway, I'm going to go with it. But we are going to wrap it up here, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, Llerandi Gloves, go check them out. Spring training, we will be doing something tomorrow. I will have some content for you tomorrow. I actually interviewed Johnny Estrada yesterday. I went up to his complex in Noonan, and it was just a really good, fun time talking baseball with a guy that was an all-star back in 2004, has a lot of stories about the Braves, a lot of stories about some alumni, and just a very good guy to talk baseball with. So we got a long interview with him too. So it's a good thing. He's going to show you some baseball lessons, and if you want to go check him out, the best place to do that is look up on Facebook Game on Noonan. Go check that out. I'll try to put a link in the description, but that interview will probably be coming out either tomorrow or Saturday. Probably Saturday is when I'm going to drop that, but it's a really good one. I promise you, he's got some stories that will make you laugh, make you smile, and I think it's going to be a good one. So that will be coming out probably Saturday, and we'll try to have some content for you tomorrow. So I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed some of the content today, and hope the Braves are successful tomorrow as they take on the Twins. With that said, we're going to check out, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on deck.